Good evening, and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for these businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community, one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.
Good evening, Eagle Country. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families, and tonight's show, hun, is a very important one.
Well, aren't they all?
Well, tonight I think we're going to address one of the most silent, deadly killers that is plaguing our homes today.
Wait, are we going to be talking about global warming or something? Where are you going with this?
Hun, it is serious. This is a serious topic. This is destroying more marriages and families than I think anyone really realizes. And I'm calling it the slow fade.
Okay.
So if you're married or you know someone who is, which is pretty much everybody, right? Stay tuned because tonight is such an important show. But before we get rolling.
Well, okay, wait. So a slow fade, this is dealing with the fade in the relationship,
yes,
right?
In marriage.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So I can get off my global warming kick,
yes,
right?
I'm not sure where you came from with
that.
that.
I know. Hey, you said this is
It is the end of July, so
dangerous or something.
But before we get started, we just want to thank our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. Without them, this show would not be possible. So if you know or frequent these businesses, please let them know that you're listening and that you appreciate the positive programming on marriages and families. Before we get started on the slow fade in marriage, hon, let's talk a little bit about strong dads coming up.
Yeah, so we have a couple of different things with strong dads. We're starting to use the phrase strong dads quite a bit, and that is very purposeful. The idea here that we work with marriages and families, in large part, I in particular do a lot of focus on dads, fatherhood, and the importance of dads. And so one of the opportunities that we have there is our Strong Dads fitness class. That begins August 10th. It is essentially, it's a 45-minute workout study followed by a 45-minute Bible study. It goes for 8 weeks. It is a great opportunity for you to kind of have iron sharpening iron with a bunch of other dudes. It is just good stuff. Plus, we get to get our workout in early in the morning on a Saturday.
Yeah, so, that's early.
and I haven't really said this lately, but our address is 7484 Christina Drive, Suite 101, out in West Harrison. That's 47060.
St. Leon, but
St. Leon, but it's technically West Harrison. So, or you can call me at 513-312-1615. Give me a call, and I'll reserve a spot for you. So I can't wait for that.
You can always contact us, hon, through rocksolidfamilies.org. That's our website. Or we have a Rock Solid Families Facebook page. So feel free to reach out to register through any of those outlets. Talk about the podcast, hon, because that's coming up.
Yeah,
You've been promising this for a while.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
In conjunction with the Strong Dads class, we have the Strong Dads podcast. And so teaming up with a young dad by the name of Kyle Crawford. Kyle's a good man. He's a fireman paramedic. I love the story there. He came to me. I was already writing some Strong Dad podcast stuff, and he came to me and he said, in the work that I do, I see really messy neighborhood situations all the time, domestic violence and things like this, criminal behavior. And he's like, and I just see it as being a dad problem. I don't see dads in the neighborhoods kind of thing. And so I invited him to come alongside of me. And so these shows are just meant to grab dads. Moms, you're more than willing or able to listen. In fact, we encourage you because sometimes you have a lot of influence to making a strong dad even stronger.
So those are going to be available the beginning of August, which really is this week.
Yeah.
So we're saying to check out our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families, or our website. We'll have it on rocksolidfamilies.org. So either one, you can reach and get that podcast. Hopefully we'll get it on Spotify. Rock Solid Radio is on Spotify if you haven't found that yet, as well as Eagle Country Online. So just opportunities to speak into families' lives, to walk alongside moms and dads, especially dads, with this. So we're excited.
How about the prepare class you got coming up, or the process that we do called prepare?
So we don't talk about this very often, but we also want to plug prepare. Many couples have taken advantage of our premarital program called Prepare. We have done classes in several times a year, but mostly one-on-one sessions with engaged couples. So if you know of someone, or maybe you yourself are planning to get married in the next year or so, I highly recommend Prepare. It's a great way to build your relationship on that solid rock foundation so you can be prepared for any storm. So I think if more couples would have gone through Prepare before tying the knot, we would not be seeing, this slow fade in many married couples today.
Yeah, well, and sometimes an extremely fast fade, and it's always amazing to us how quickly somebody can be married for 6 months to a year, and all of a sudden they're ready to call it quits, and you're thinking, wow, how much preventative work could have we done there with Prepare? So,
and and to speak on that, I think that we have a lot of young couples that are either cohabitating because they've heard such horrible things about marriage, and we'll be talking about that later, but or jump into it with such unrealistic expectations, and the first time they get in an argument, they think, I've married the wrong person, and they're ready to call it quits, because in this society today, it's a throwaway society, right? Our refrigerator breaks down. It costs more sometimes to repair it than get another one, or a microwave, or it's just crazy how we're just throwing things away for a better, newer model.
So that's a great program, and we you can't be overly prepared to jump into marriage, because marriage is a commitment, but it's also work, and you start to figure out quickly that there's a big difference between love and lust, right? And so love is sacrificial. Right?
Yes. And we're going to be talking about this tonight in Slow Fade, but love is a decision. So you might not be feeling love for your partner. You might not even like them very much right now, but love is a decision. And when you say, I do.
You just really looked at me funny when you said, I may not like you right now. What? We need to get to the show here, because we might start fading.
So if you're just tuning in, we're tackling tonight one of the most silent but deadly killers of marriages and families today. And I'm calling it the slow fade, hon. I just got to tell you a story. And you and I know this couple well, but I was shocked years ago when I received a call for one of my key church volunteers one Sunday morning. I was literally running around back in Faithville, our children's ministry, and Doug and Lisa were scheduled to work with our toddlers that day. And Lisa called early in the morning, and she was crying, hysterical on the phone. And I really thought there had been an accident or someone was killed. And she said on the other line, I'll never forget, Linda, we need your help. Our marriage is in crisis, and I don't know what to do. And I honestly don't remember much more of that conversation, because I was in shock, Here was what I thought a very strong, active Christian family. They had been married over a decade. They had 5 kids that they looked like they were happy and healthy, and things were going well. And I thought, there's no way. I must have heard something wrong. And so we scheduled an appointment that week with the two of them, and we, began to uncover this really silent but deadly killer we're talking about tonight, the slow fade. And Doug and Lisa's story is not uncommon, and I've gotten permission to use their names. I was going to make sure I had that, but they tell the story a lot because it's not uncommon, and it's very, very common for a young and active family. Lisa would admit, if she was here today, that she had put her kids and activities above her relationship with the Lord and with Doug.
Yeah.
And Doug, on the other hand, had slowly just drifted away from his wife, not feeling like he was a priority anymore in the home because it was very busy. And he found someone at work that was more interested in him than his wife was at the time.
Yeah. Well, a phrase that kind of comes to my mind is that you fall in love, or in some these cases, you fall out of love. And the fall seems to be like a kind of an immediate thing, and really this is more of a fading or drifting out of love. And we're going to talk tonight about the idea of Well, what's behind that? What else is owning our time and our attention that would attract us more significantly than our spouse?
Yeah, it could be work. It could be fill in the blank. It could be your friends. It could be another, somebody of the opposite sex. But hun, in the 1960s, I don't know if you remember hearing about this book, but
I was there.
Charles Hummel published a very small booklet called The Tyranny of the Urgent. And it quickly became a must-read for professionals. In it, Hummel argued that there is a regular tension, and we feel this in our tension in our house all the time, between things that are urgent and then things that are important. And far too often, the urgent wins. This happens with our kids all the time. Like, oh my gosh, you've got to go change the light bulb in the basement. Like, that is the most important thing in the world for that person right that second, But same is true in our homes, and it's so easy for us in our marriages to allow the urgent to constantly trump the important.
Yeah, I think you're just talking about keeping proper perspective.
Yes.
On what's really important, and this is that idea that we become very inwardly focused, and if I'm only thinking about what I want or what I need, that becomes priority. And you forget that in this, there's 3,
Somebody
4,
else.
5 other people that also are walking in the same house. So
and if you're like Doug and Lisa, and you have 5 kids who are young at the time, I think their youngest was 1, and so all of a sudden you've got baseball games and soccer tournaments, and so your wife is asking for a date week after week after week, and she's begging, like, I want to spend some time with you, but your kids have a baseball tournament every weekend, or your husband just walked in the door and your phone rings and you pick up the phone and your husband's kind of like, hello, I'm here, does anybody care that I'm even home? So it's rarely mean or malicious, but over time I feel like there is this slow fade in what's important, especially in our marriage, that the tyranny of the urgency, the things that just kind of get to us. And sometimes it's the kids, sometimes it's our job, this world of 24/7 connections where your boss can get a hold of you at 11:30 at night and ask you to do something at, 5 in the morning. It just kind of all of a sudden starts to fade between the two of you.
Well, and I think something along that line too is it's not just that my boss can get a hold of me, although you're not my boss, so you
you are my boss.
Wait, yeah, but it's also entertainment, and we see that now in the digital world. Entertainment is simple as I could talk with you, or I could watch a YouTube video of some interest that I have.
Or you're pouring your heart to me and a notification just popped up that someone just liked my picture.
Yeah,
or,
distraction.
So, we're talking about the end of more and more marriages every year. And you may have heard rumors, hon, that the national divorce rate is actually declining, which some people are saying, oh, yeah, well, we're doing things better. Well, we got to kind of look at the why behind the what. It is true that first-time marriages, the divorce rate is down from 50% to about 40 to 45%. But why is that? Hun, one of the reasons is cohabitation.
Right. There aren't as many people getting married, but also they're all frequently waiting longer to get married. And so, like you said, the cohabitating, they're still together. Right? And I think it would be very interesting to add that stat in there, the number of cohabitating couples that break up.
Yeah,
because
that's not included in
you
the
and I
national
see that actually
divorce.
pretty frequently.
Right.
That doesn't get the label divorce, but that's a pretty quick exit for a lot of couples.
And we've talked about this before, when you intertwine finances or children or, sexual intimacy, then all of a sudden that gets really messy too. So it doesn't make it any better or easier. But also, hun, that first-time marriage rate is down, but the number of second and third-time marriages in our country is even greater. And that percentage, I just was sharing this with a couple the other day, is even worse. Did you know that if you've been married 2 times, the divorce rate is over 60%? And if you've been married 3 times, it's over 70%.
Right, meaning 70% will get divorced in that third marriage.
Yes.
And I mean, that's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we need to point out here is that this doesn't matter whether you're Christian or you
Right.
say you're Christian or not,
Unfortunately
or
not.
whether you go to church or not, because Satan is always around distracting us, and whether we're wanting to be conscious and call it Satan or not, the idea that distraction or stuff that attracts us from our spouse is it doesn't matter,
And it's getting greater
it's
and
every
greater.
home. Yeah.
So let's not celebrate the statistics or the numbers, but let's look at the source of the reality, hon. Strong and healthy couples, married couples, are no longer the majority of what we're seeing in today's society. Our kids are no longer seeing healthy role models around them to learn from. So they don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about how do I know? How can I recognize that there's a fade going on?
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is one of these things like the old frog thrown in the boiling water,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's such a slow process that he doesn't even know that he needs to get out of this pot.
Temperature is cranking up,
And
yeah.
the next thing you know, he's gone. So what are some of the different signs? You and I talk about this one here, the physical intimacy
Oh, yeah.
part. And this gets dismissed by so many couples.
Oh yeah, he snores, so we've been sleeping in another bed, separate beds for years. Like, oh wow, that's not good.
Yeah, we're not here to be sex therapists, right?
Right.
But in a lot of work that we do, we just have to be honest here, all right? If we have a couple who your plumbing's fine, right? We have no medical problems. The male is healthy, the female's healthy, and we find out that they have not been sexually intimate for the last 3, 4, 5 months, maybe even into the
Years.
year.
Yep.
They're in separate rooms because, like you said, he snores or he gets up so often or whatever. Warning sign.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a big, big red flag.
Right.
There are things going on here, because that's just not that's not natural to feeding the intimacy.
Right, exactly.
That the marriage needs.
Yeah, you have to be super intentional if you're sleeping in a separate bed or a separate room to keep that physical intimacy going. If you're always too tired, or too busy, we hear that a lot, to be sexually intimate with your spouse. What is going on? I mean, you and I, hun, when we had our young kids, it was hard because I was a stay-at-home mom. I was exhausted. But I cannot make that the norm. I can't make that the normal thing in our routine. I've got to make sure I am sensitive to your needs. Is there someone else who's capturing your heart of your spouse or you? So they don't even have a desire. You don't have a desire because someone else is speaking or treating you physically intimate, and that's not good. Don't settle for less than God's best.
If like we said, if everybody's healthy, and the hormone levels are right, and all of these things, and physical intimacy is significantly dropped, we have to address this by what has replaced it. Whether it's another person, whether it's pornography, whether it's work.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay at work because this is where I get fed, and the next thing you know, we are being intimate with our work.
Sure. And if physical intimacy is hard, then lean in. Do not make your partner the enemy if they're asking for it, because that is what married couples do. Go to the doctor together. Find a solution together. Say to your partner, I want to be intimate with you. I don't have a sex drive, or it hurts, or whatever it is, that you are going to work through that together to find a solution. Telling your partner, I want that with you.
Yeah.
That helps the slow fade.
So that's a big, big part. How about this? And I'm going to say that the one that we're going to talk about now, guys, don't turn this off, because this is going to be something that most women, I think, will connect with, but I see it just as often with men that I'm dealing with. This is emotional intimacy.
Sure.
Okay. Help us out a little bit, hon. What is emotional intimacy?
So if you're not dreaming together anymore, I don't feel like I can be authentic or vulnerable with my spouse anymore. He or she won't sit down and open up to me about what's going on inside. Ladies, sometimes that's because we have browbeat our husbands so badly, it's easier for them not to even try. Because if they open their mouth, it's wrong, or it's, not enough, or, so Or is there someone outside of your marriage who you're having those kind of emotional conversations with? Hun, when I hear a woman or a man say that someone of the opposite sex is their best friend, that's a red flag. They should not be your best friend. You should not be confiding in someone of the opposite sex more than your spouse.
Yeah, well, because that is that emotional intimacy side.
Yes.
And the reason why I tell guys not to shut this off, we might look at the emotional talk as being kind of that warm and fuzzy thing. But from a man's perspective, you mentioned the word before, dreams. So ladies, this is where, as a man, if I'm sharing kind of my dream, someday I want to own a company, or someday I want to climb this mountain, or someday whatever I do, because that's kind of how I might be hardwired, and that gets water thrown on it.
That's stupid, yeah.
Yeah, that emotionally I go, well, what the heck?
Never mind.
This is not where I'm going to get fed.
Right.
And so I start to turn away, and I'll go to other people that will emotionally feed me.
Like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Either people that have common or similar interest, or people who just kind of are intrigued by where I'm at with that. So that's a lady might feel like she needs to have her feelings discussed and talked about, whether they be the problems of the day or whatever. But a guy kind of needs to know that his dreams are worthy and supported and cheerleaded behind.
Sure.
So
it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. So that's the emotional side of that. And both of us will seek it out if we're not getting it from our partner.
Yeah. And, hun, we tease couples all the time, but they really do keep this in their memory. We talk about guys being the microwave. Like, the physical intimacy is not usually something that takes a lot of effort on their part. Women are more like crock pots. And so if you want the slow fade not to occur in your home, you've got to recognize that there is a difference, and that women need that emotional intimacy during the early part of the day in order for them to be ready for that physical intimacy later on. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, and again, it's not. We're not trying to say that guys shouldn't be their microwave self, and women shouldn't be their crockpot self, but to acknowledge how each other operates. And so if you as my spouse need more emotional connection or time or whatever, then if I'm not aware of that, I'm going to create the fade.
Right, and the expectation is unrealistic for her to get where you want to be.
Yeah.
But, hun, probably what I saw in ministry was the spiritual intimacy is non-existent. It's tough to pull away from your spouse when God is at the center of your relationship. And we did an article on this last fall, hun, called Less Than 1%. But statistics say that less than 1% of couples who pray together on a regular basis divorce.
Yeah.
I don't know of a statistic that rivals that. And working in the church for 20 years, it was not uncommon for couples in that slow fade to fall away and kind of fall off the radar, disappear. Kids would stop coming to Sunday school. Mom and dad would stop going to church. They would drop out of their small group. They would stop praying together. It's just start of an ugly downhill slide for their family. So please, that's a red flag. Do not let that happen. Sometimes they get mad at the pastor and they'll leave the church, but they won't go anywhere.
Right.
And all of a sudden we see this downhill.
The spiritual intimacy part of this is for lots of different reasons. One, it's you're both having the same leader in charge, right? That rock solid families is created because we have a foundation that we set everything else on, and so that spiritual intimacy says you are both working for the same God,
exactly,
and He is that common factor that says, you know what? Well, is my behavior not quite right? Yeah. Is her behavior not quite right? Quite right according to who?
Exactly.
To the same God.
Whose standards,
right? And so that spiritual intimacy, and we find that not just with the couple, but for the whole family.
Absolutely.
If the whole family can have that spiritual connection, there is just strength in that.
Oh, yeah. And what a gift to give your kids, to say that you're not the center of the universe, that God is the center of our world. And, hon, that kind of leads me to the next red flag, is if your family or you as a couple have misplaced priorities. Let's put the big rocks in first. Let's do get back to church. Let's do start praying together. Let's put God above each other and our kids. I would have a lot of couples who've been married for decades come in, and the husband, I would say this, do you feel like sometimes you kind of rank below the dog? And he is like, that is it. Like it's the kids, and then it's the animals, and his work, and somewhere below that, the spouse felt like he was the priority.
Well, he's an adult, and he can take care of himself.
Yes.
I have all these other things
The
I have
kids,
to take care of.
and again, that's the tyranny of the urgency. The kids are, grabbing on your leg or have the soccer tournament, and so you feel like I've got to do that as a mom or a dad, and we gotta show our kids that soccer does not rank as a priority in our home.
Yeah.
It's God, and then it's each other. You got to have those date nights.
Yeah.
And then our kids and family time and meals and things like that.
The biggest gift that we can show our kids is that the level of value that we show our spouse.
Absolutely. And the Lord.
Yeah, and by doing that, our kids start to realize their appropriate place, but more important than that, they'll understand it when they are married.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their place.
So we're running out of time. A couple other things. Petty arguments, unrealistic expectations. There's a deeper reason. You are not arguing over dishes. You are not arguing over socks. There's something bigger going on. And so stop focusing on the little things and kind of say, okay, why am I getting all worked up about that? What is it that's triggering in me that's upsetting me about what my spouse is doing?
Right. And that sometimes takes some help because
Sure.
You have to look at a general theme that runs through. And so I was just working with a couple, and just with our session, I saw like 5 or 6 different things that were like these arguments that were coming up. And I had to kind of back away and say, what's the theme here? And the theme was a control theme. And so we had to step out of that and say, okay, wait, we're not arguing about what you think we're arguing about. Right. We're arguing about who's in control here.
Sure. Probably, hon, we got to get to this one. Probably the most dangerous red flag is the shutdown mode. You're getting nothing. No physical intimacy, no emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy. There's not even any arguments. You and your spouse haven't argued in years because you really haven't even had a conversation in years.
Yeah.
Please get help today. That's not a marriage. That's a roommate. And you may be thinking your marriage is at a 9 or a 10 because you never fight, but your partner is on autopilot and they've already checked out and maybe checked in with someone else.
One of the big things that I talk about, this is more of a man statement, not that a lady couldn't do it, but it's more of a man statement. When your spouse is gone, when your man has gone silent, you're going to hear a lot of whatever.
Yeah.
The hands will go up and he'll say whatever. And ladies, that is a huge red flag, because whatever doesn't mean I'm okay with what you did. Whatever means this is an argument I can't win, or I don't want to go. I don't even care enough to go to the fight any longer.
So going back to our opening story of Doug and Lisa, I recently caught up with them and asked them how they were doing, and I was so encouraged to hear God continuing to bless them. Doug and Lisa are not ashamed of their difficult season and that slow fade because it brought them where they are today. They're celebrating 22 years of marriage, so this was a decade ago the story occurred, and they have shared their testimony with so many couples since then. When I reached out to Lisa, she said, I am grateful every day for our healthy marriage and family. I will never be ashamed of where we were because of what God brought us. I was just sharing the other day, she said, with some other families that God saved our marriage and family. They see a healthy, happy family now, and I have to give God all the glory. And so, if you feel like tonight's show is for you and your spouse and you're in a slow fade, please get some help today. Stop brushing those feelings of emptiness and despair under the rug. Satan wants to use those feelings to destroy your marriage, but God wants to use those same feelings to bring something better. So you don't have to settle for status quo. Call us at Rock Solid Families, 812-576-ROCK, or rocksolidfamilies.org, hon. We want to come alongside you. There is more for your marriage.
No doubt about it. So we need to keep marriages strong, guys, and if we can help you, as Linda just said, get out there and contact us. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. Thank you for your support. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. If you have questions you'd like answered on air, or you want to chime in on something you've heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.